So there's Dr. B in the studio. We have a pretty good show aligned for tonight. Of course, first and foremost, it's Yom HaZikaron, and we'll do a little dedication to that and some silence as well as some talk. We're also going to bring up the fact that Canada's new party, the NDP party, has recently endorsed BDS. We'll also a reintroduction of last week's show, talking about the Naqba, more nonsense from the Naqba. The Canadian police officers are targeting the Jewish media. Today is also the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. So if there's enough time, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And Robert Spencer was supposed to be our guest this evening, but due to some situations beyond anyone's control, hopefully he'll be with us next week. And now I'm going to give it to Mayor, who's live in the studio with Zaza.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Mayor Weinstein.
I'm Zaza Villi. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
We're with you. I'm going to ask everyone who's joining us if you could please share this with the various groups and pages that you're part of. We'll reach a lot more people. Whatever social media platform that you're on, just share this, share the link, and again, we'll reach a lot more people. This is a phone-in as well. If you have any questions, concerns, you could call, and we'll do our best to address whatever your concerns or questions are. And the number is 647-510-5535. We'll take your calls. As we start every week, we start with a short recap of the Parsha that we just read in synagogue last Shabbat, and that was Parsha Shmini. And it's very insightful. And Parsha Shmini is about that the tabernacle was completed. They finished building it. And the priest, the Kohanim, were just ready to go in to inaugurate the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And Aaron's sons, his sons, were ready for the occasion. They were, it was already known that Moses is getting older and Aaron, he's getting older. And they're going to be giving the torch to the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. And they were looking forward to this, and they were considered of incredible stature, and Tzaddikim, no question about it, righteous. And something happened that on this day that's supposed to be an incredible day, a joyous day, that they finally built the Mishkan, and everyone's looking forward to everything. And everybody was, remember previous parshas, everybody's contributing as much as they can, gold and so much to the building, the construction of the tabernacle, and everything is so exact. Who's going to be the architect? B'Tselem, everything to the T. And on this day, that's going to be the crown jewel of old days, Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, that they got extremely excited. And it says they offered a strange offering, a strange fire. And a fire came down from heaven and consumed them, and they died. And but it says later on that Moses says to Aaron that they were the best of the best. And Aaron was in mourning because his sons died, that God took their lives. And it was like a punishment and also not like a punishment. And there's the enigma there. And there's this. So it was a sad day. It wasn't a day of celebration. That's why it's called Parsha Shmini, the 8th day. It was a very sad day. It was a devastating day for the Jewish people. And what the take-home message of this is, we have the question that we ask, why? Why did God do this? So I asked my rabbi in the synagogue. So I asked him the question, why? And I don't mean to ask the question, well, let me go back, because the question why is really something that a lot of people ask. Why? They ask, as we observed Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron and old days of memorial for the Jewish people, especially Yom HaShoah, just remember, 1.5 million Jewish children were murdered by the Nazis in the Holocaust. And we asked the question, why? Why, God? So we asked the question with Aaron's sons, why? And we don't have an answer. We know 100% they're righteous. We know that. And we also know that the Nazis were the epitome of evil. And those who we face today, our foes today, that want to see the destruction of Israel, we know that they are the epitome and the heirs of Hitler. They want to do the same thing. In fact, in 1948, when the state of Israel came into being, that the Arab armies converged on Israel with the express goal of wiping out the brand new Jewish state and carrying out what Hitler didn't finish. They wanted to finish the job and murder all the Jews in Israel. They were clear about this, to throw the Jews into the sea, that this is going to be another slaughter. They were very clear about this. God performed a miracle, and the Jewish people rose to the occasion, and we won, and we were successful. And so we have questions. We have questions of faith. We have questions of God's purpose, why he allows certain things to happen. But one thing we have no doubt about, we have no doubt that those enemies of the Jewish people, that they are evil incarnate. There is absolutely no question about that. So we continue with questions from this parsha, and it's healthy to ask the question. And when I asked the rabbi the question, he looks, yes, we have a question. We have a question. We have a question. We don't drop our faith. And there isn't anything out there better. What's better? That when Jews were forced to engage in debate to defend Judaism against the Catholic Church, and if we didn't have the right answer, that we're going to be forced to convert or murdered. And this happened during the Holocaust too. And that you have radical Islamic scholars that call for a death and destruction of Israel. In fact, it's regular in Iran. We should forsake our faith and go for something like that. And that's better? That's not better. That's evil. So that's a short recap of the Parsha. And I hope people take it to heart. There are groups, unfortunately, amongst the Jewish people, left-wing, so-called left-wing progressive groups. And Zaz, are you aware that while there's in Israel and around the world, we're keeping Yom HaZikaron to remember the Israeli soldiers that gave their lives for the state of Israel. They are righteous beyond question. There's no question. The ultimate sacrifice they made for the Jewish people. When you think about our history, and yet there was J Street and J Space and the New Israel Fund and a whole collection of organizations that organized some kind of a joint memorial in Israel, encompassing a part of Yom HaZikaron with the Naqba.
Yeah.
So they had Arabs who, and I read from these Arabs what they say, or these Muslims, what they have to say about the occasion, that they said many of them, they said they had friends that were criticizing you shouldn't be part of it, but they said, well, but hang on, we're fighting for a Palestine state in what they call the West Bank, and in what would remain Israel proper. That has to change. That cannot be a Jewish state. And that's what they're having at their service that they had yesterday. And then you have an actor, Richard Gere, that made a statement. He spoke virtually for that. And he said, Israelis will not have a home until the Palestinians have, after Auschwitz, the Jews came back to Israel.
came back.
How dare he say such a statement? That is sophisticated anti-Semitism.
Sure it is. Sure,
That's
soft.
what it is.
Soft.
Yeah, and that J Street and J Space and New Israel Fund, they feel so righteous above it all that they could provide a platform for such anti-Semitic garbage.
Absolutely. It's interesting that people like Richard Gere, I mean, there's so many of these actors and other lowlifes, whatever, will listen to groups like these people, but they won't listen to other groups.
Right.
The pro-Israel groups and stuff,
Right.
for whatever reason.
Right.
You got to question something. That's what you got to question. Why are they so comfortable in speaking to and believing groups like, they're anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and everything else, but not other groups and associations that are pro-Israel who will sit down and show you facts and everything else, as opposed to all these fairy tales and lies that have been going on and are believable now by all these so-called actors. It's disgusting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in solidarity with Israel and Yom HaZikaron, we do have a video, and I'm asking everybody to pause for a couple minutes. Please. And pay attention to this video. It's from Israel. Show the video and a moment of silence, as there was a moment of silence in Israel. And then we'll move on to other portions of the show, and we'll get into issues with Ron East about the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, their terrible plans to equate the Naqba with the Holocaust and invite groups, BDS groups, and we'll get into that, and invite Jews who are part of the BDS to make this happen at the museum. It's horrible, and we're working hard on it. So we have this video to show.
Doctor, please.
Thank you very much. We're back. So we've
Amazing
been.
the whole country just comes to a standstill.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's Israel. It's a Jewish state. It's
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible, and we have to do everything to make sure that we help Israel.
Yeah.
That's the obligation of Jews that's outside of Israel, and inside of Israel. But while you're outside, and we hope to be there really soon, because right now flights are not going to Israel.
Yeah.
And I want to move there badly, but we'll get that done. But while we're here, we have to do everything we can to make it possible. So here we have a
Richard.
see that? A picture of Richard Gere Israelis won't have a home until Palestinians have one. Yeah, pompous, smiling anti-Semite. Don't watch any of his movies.
Yeah, please. And they have a home. It's called Jordan.
Yeah,
It's a big home.
yeah.
Very big home.
And how come Jordan attacked Israel in 48? And how come Jordan attacked Israel in 1967 when Israel was not controlling what they call the West Bank, it's Judea and Samaria? How come they attacked? What did they want?
We know what they want.
They wanted Tel Aviv.
They wanted everything.
Yeah, they wanted the whole thing. So
they still do.
why does Richard Gere complain to the Jordanians? Why did you start the war? Why did you do it? Why didn't you build a state then for these what you call Palestinians? Why didn't you? Why didn't they build a state in Gaza when they had controlled Gaza before 67 as well? They didn't. Why won't Richard Gere ask that question? Is there any introspection on that side? Let's see. Shall Hitler? Hang on one moment. Let me just read a letter that I received from. First off, let's bring Ron East on, and then I'll read the letter. And Ron East also received a letter. It's an introduction about.
Ron East is going to be on our special guest, an unapologetic Zionist, and he runs the JCA. So here, Ron.
Ron, how you doing?
Awesome. Pleasure to be back on the show, especially on a day like today. You know, we just finished commemorating the loss of close to 24,000 fellow Jews, Israelis, Druze, Muslims, Christians, who died on behalf of our country, on behalf of our people. It's a very emotional day for those of us who have served in the army and who have lost dear friends in the army. And then the miracle the next day of the creation of the state of Israel, the power that's in that. You know, when I was listening to the siren as it was going off, you know, what I was thinking of, that is our anthem. That is our anthem. It's our cry to the world, you know, to let the world know as Jews, you know, it's our cry to the world. We want peace, no more. But I think it's also sending a warning to our enemies that you can do what you want to us, but we have a resolve, we're strong, and we're not going to go away. As to Richard Gere, if I may just say something, and I'm going to say it bluntly, who gives a you-know-what about Richard Gere? Who is he? You know, it's amazing to me how people who, you know, who are actors all of a sudden become these, you know, great academics, you know, and historians, you know, that can able to all of a sudden sit there and tell, you know, the wide public, you know, about Israelis not having a home. I have news for Richard Gere. We have a home. It's called Israel, and we just celebrated 73 years in our home. And you know what? It's been our home for 3,000 years. So Richard Gere, you can say whatever you want. You might be a good actor, but you're not a good academic and historian, and you're certainly not somebody to speak about Israel. So I agree with you. That's very soft anti-Semitism. They do it out of fear, you know. Imagine him standing for Israel. Imagine the flack he would get. So much easier to be on the other side. Anyways, pleasure being back on the show.
Yep, it's great having you. We have another short video that we're going to show of Jews celebrating in Israel right now with the Tikva. It's short. We'll bring it on. Then we'll get into the issues.
Doctor.
ציון וירושלים. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו.
That is amazing. You know what, Mayor? I don't think there's another country in the world that honors their fallen like Israel does.
Yeah.
You see people on the balconies, people lined up on the streets, the buses will stop, people on motorcycles will stop doing that.
Yep.
It really is amazing.
It is.
It really
It's incredible.
is. What an amazing country.
And it's family.
Of course, it's family. I mean, almost everyone there has lost. Even Netanyahu, he lost his brother, of course, in Tibi raid, But, what an amazing country. It really
Absolutely.
is.
So we've been involved in this campaign against the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, calling on them to not include the Naqba in the museum. The BDS wants a Naqba exhibit in the museum on par with the Holocaust, but then with a twist, because the BDS, well, we're going to get into it pretty soon. We have a video that we're going to show later on of one of the leaders of Hamas blaming the Holocaust on Jews. They also call the Holocaust a myth as well. But so I've been sending emails to Isha Khan, the CEO of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, and others have been sending emails to her as well. And Ron East has sent also a number of strong emails to her as well. So I finally got a response from her. Here's her response. Mayor Weinstein, thank you for your email. I appreciate you taking the time to reach out to us. As a public institution and museum dedicated to human rights, it is always important for us to listen to a broad range of community perspectives. Our current strategic direction, as set by our board of trustees, including working in partnership with community organizations, leaders, and those with lived experiences to identify and address gaps in our exhibition and programming content. For example, recently we have been working on ensuring the Black Canadian stories and Two-Spirit stories are represented. This process of ongoing community engagement involves meeting with members of as broad a range of communities as possible, including the Palestinian Canadian community and Jewish Canadian community, to listen and learn and inspire human rights dialogue in Canada. Exhibition development at the museum is a long and rigorous process, beginning with robust curatorial research and engagement with scholars, as well as discussion and often collaboration with the community and other stakeholders. Telling human rights stories is a complex endeavor, and the development of exhibit often takes years of detailed planning and research to bring to fruition. We rely on our approach to continue to improve our programming and ensure that it is reflective of the world around us. Thank you again for sharing with us for your interest in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So now, it's a loaded letter. It's not a nice letter at all. It is a very bad letter, in fact. I sent a response to Isha Khan immediately, asking who are the Palestinian Canadian organizations that you're meeting with, because I told her, as far as my understanding is, these what you call Palestinian Canadian organizations do not recognize the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. They support the Intifada. They do not recognize the right of Israel to exist. They support the BDS. Often they express support for Hamas and Hezbollah, organizations that are on the terrorist list by the government of Canada. So which organizations are you meeting with? Please, I'd like to know organizations that do not fit into the category that I mentioned. I would like to know of these Palestinian Canadian organizations that if they do in fact recognize the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state, that they accept the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, that they reject the BDS, that they reject and condemn Hamas and Hezbollah, that they reject all that anti-Semitism as well. One other point is that the BDS, and we have pointed this out before to Isha Khan, that the BDS National Committee, the composition of it, it's based in Ramallah. It was founded in Ramallah, but a major component of it is Hamas and Hezbollah, which are and other terror groups, Islamic Jihad. So if these Palestinian Canadian organizations and leaders are supportive of the BDS, then you can't be a supporter of the BDS without being a supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah.
Absolutely.
They are a serious component
Right.
of the BDS National Committee. There's no question about it. That's fully documented. So who are they? Also, who are the Jewish Canadian groups that you're meeting with? Because it's my understanding that CJA has not been contacted. The Simon Wiesenthal Center has not been contacted. B'nai B'rith Canada has not been contacted. Certainly I haven't been, the JDL hasn't been contacted. There's other Jewish organizations that I'm fully aware of, or synagogues that have not been contacted. Who has been contacted? Is it the independent Jewish voices and organizations like that that embrace the BDS and support the Intifada? They've said that publicly. Is that who she's meeting with? And therefore, what does that speak about for a Naqba exhibit to be in this museum? Ron, I want you to join in and let's discuss this. We have a call coming as well.
We got a call, folks.
Let's take the call.
Let's take the call.
Hello.
Hi, this is Marty Gold calling in from Winnipeg.
Hey, Marty, how you doing? We wanted to have you on the show as well. Yes.
I know I couldn't arrange my stuff, but I'm able to watch it while I'm working on a couple of things, and I want to get in a couple of cents worth.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'll move on.
Yes. Go ahead.
You read off that list of the different stakeholders.
Yes.
That the museum professes that they are going to take input from.
Yes.
You went through a number of groups. You mentioned about CJA, about Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Yep.
You know what nobody mentions, except of course for the J.A. and people like yourself. What about the Israelis?
Right.
This is and I'm not Israeli, by the way.
Right.
This is a discussion about Israelis,
Yep.
and everybody involved has been excluding Israelis really for decades in Canada when it's come to these kinds of discussions. And this is something that has to be brought to the fore at this stage, is the people whose voices are supposed to be heard at the table are being completely excluded from the discussions. So I'm not saying that you were excluding them, but just from you reeling off the list, you're reeling off the list of what we would call, in my business, the usual suspects.
Right. Absolutely, you're right.
And whereas they may or may not have a role, but it's the exclusion of Israelis that is precipitating the ability of the narrative to be twisted.
Right. 100%. That's right.
That's a good
right.
point.
So,
That's a good point.
There's a lot of Israelis living in Canada.
I wanted to make that point and make sure that that was heard. I know you've developed a very devoted audience lately, and I know that they would be, when you point this out, I think that this is going to help. It's going to help the public dialogue. It's going to help the public understand from which direction any such narratives that may or may not be involved in the taxpayer-funded museum should be crafted and formulated.
Right.
But absolutely, Israelis should be first and foremost involved in this. And the reluctance of Isha Khan, it took her a week, I think, to respond to Ron. Probably took her longer than that to respond to you.
Yes.
This indicates that they were caught flat-footed, or that otherwise they weren't expecting any pushback.
Right. We're not letting up.
I wouldn't think so. So I just wanted to jump in now and just make sure that that point was made when I heard you go through, as I said, the list of usual suspects. There's another thing that's contributing to problems here. That's the absolute lack of unity between some Jewish leaders, so-called Jewish leadership organizations, and other segments within the broader national Jewish Makhilah, the broader community,
Yep.
including Israelis, including certain religious elements, the organizations that want to lead have got to lead everybody, or else they're only speaking for themselves. And that's also a point that's becoming, I think, more and more clear to people. As you know, for 2 years now that I've been back involved in the realm of Jewish journalism, I've seen almost every major organization, almost every, caught flat-footed, time and again,
Right.
whether it's anti-Semitic speeches in churches, whether it's movements going on in universities, whether it's insidious, hey, we can't even get press credentials to ask the government who decided menorahs and Hanukkah candles couldn't be sold on the store shelves.
Right.
Nobody wants to answer these questions for the Jewish community, and sometimes the leadership doesn't want to ask them, but now is the time for perhaps a reconsideration of what leadership is and what direction it's going to take for Jews in this country, and to make sure that especially Israelis are included in any discussion.
Absolutely. Great point.
About their society and about their history.
Excellent. Absolutely. No
Because
question
you
about
never
it.
really think about Israelis, because you think, okay, Jewish organizations.
Just the
but
Jewish
never-
community, but,
right, but never Israelis.
why is this so-called Palestinian Canadian community? What about the Israelis who are
Right.
there's
So
plenty.
everyone else, she wants to have a meeting with everybody under the sun except for Israelis.
Yeah.
Marty, that's a great point, man. Thank you.
It popped out at me actually when Mayor put the correspondence from her online. I read it sent to me pretty much immediately, and immediately that's what I deduced.
Yep.
You know, her background, her capabilities, her previous experience in the realm of so-called public service, that's something that's never been examined, never been explored, and perhaps could be further. But I wouldn't put her at the pinnacle of people who really get things the first time they read them.
Right.
So this is problematic because she's going to give guidance to the board. She's new in there, and they're already running scared for many elements that are now trying to take control of the museum. That's one thing that's happening here is that people outside Winnipeg do not understand this is part of a broader, a series of scenes taking place on a stage involving different rights movements and different political leanings that are trying to squeeze out the elements that establish the museum in favor of a modern narrative that is more often than not favorable to those with traditional values, not favorable especially to Jews and to Israelis.
Absolutely.
But nobody in the East knows about that, and that has to be factored into any strategy that any organization in this country tries to move forward with. If they don't know what's going on in the museum, they are not going to be doing the Jewish community at large any favors, walking in without being properly briefed, without knowing what they're dealing with.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's very complex.
Yes.
And I'm glad, Meyer, that you've been at the front of this, and I've said this to other people. You've shown extraordinary courage in putting yourself out there on this kind of an issue, knowing that the kind of characters that provide pushback. Debate is one thing. Sometimes the debate goes beyond the pale. But I think that it's important that people recognize that this idea of backroom diplomacy, those days have passed. That's not going to work.
No.
The people that are being dealt with, where the Jewish community is expecting to be defended, expecting to be represented, this needs genuine, it's an old style of activism, an old style of Zionism, I guess is what it is.
Yep.
And people like yourself going to the forefront, you're showing what leadership is, and more people should be willing to agree to similarly step forward, show some, bait them, and stand up for Israelis and stand up for Jews in this country.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mayor, do we have, I guess, Issa Khan's email address? We've got somebody here asking for her email address. We can put it on there. I guess maybe somebody want to contact her.
I don't know if Gary has it, if you could put it on. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
If not, they could send us an email, and we'll certainly get it to them. We encourage as many people as possible to.
I wanted to jump in here on what Marty was saying, and actually when we approached Isha Khan and the museum, we approached them on behalf of the ICC, the Israeli Canadian Council, something that, we established a couple of years ago, recognizing that the Israeli community here in Canada as a community doesn't really have a voice that speaks for it. It's always the Jewish community response, it's the Federation response, it's CJA's response. And we've been slowly building up this organization. And, the letter that we sent her on our letterhead on behalf of the Israeli community did get a response. And we did get a meeting that's going to be set up. We picked a particular date for the meeting. I'm not sure if you want me to discuss the date and stuff here on the show. But we will continue to pursue, and we have some very difficult questions for Ms. Khan when we do meet with her, with our delegation. We let her know that there will be a delegation comprised of a variety of people, of Israelis, of Canadian Jews, of pro-Israel Christians. And we're going to come to her united with a clear message. And the clear message is one, yes, a catastrophe did happen in 1948, but it was not in the hands of the Jewish people. It was not in the hand of the Jewish state. We have evidence. We have pictures. We have documentation to prove without a shadow of a doubt, if you believe in what you see and if you believe in documentation, that this was largely done in the hands of the Palestinian leadership and the Arab leadership of the Arab countries surrounding Israel. Those are the kind of things that Isha Khan needs to hear from us. And we also need to get her to unequivocally come out and deny BDS and stand against BDS, as we spoke last week. And we know that she was involved with the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. And we identified last week one of their high-level executives who is proud to have established BDS here in Canada and have established anti-Israel student organizations at university levels, has written anti-Israel papers and academic papers. So we know that, there are some elements of BDS already in the past of Isha Khan. And we want to make sure that she is a neutral arbitrator. And if she's not a neutral arbitrator, that she should have no part in arbitrating something as delicate and as important as the Naqba.
Let me just cut in for a moment to add to what you said. I sent, I think I sent 3 or 4 emails to Isha Khan. And in one of the emails, I said that the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is under the control of the Canadian government. Okay, it's a crown corporation owned by the government of Canada. There. So the government of Canada has accepted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. The government of Canada recognized Israel once it came into being in 1948 till today. They recognize Israel and they have trade with Israel. There's relations. The Prime Minister of Canada condemned the BDS and he called it anti-Semitic. And for Isha Khan, who is the CEO of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, an organization that is under the auspices of the government of Canada, it's a crown corporation. How dare she go back on this and not embrace the IRA definition of anti-Semitism or recognize Israel's right to exist? We have a call.
We have a call.
Can we help you?
You're on live.
Hello? Oh, they went. They'll call back.
Call back, please.
They'll call back. So, Ron, I was just adding to what you said.
Yeah, it's as Marty was mentioning before, many people aren't aware of the agitators and the actors that are playing in the game here locally here in Winnipeg. When Marty was talking before about leadership, I asked somebody a few weeks ago about Federation, CJA, leadership, and their response to me was they're not leaders, they're fundraisers. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if that's the case, then we need to find true leaders within our community. Because leaders do their homework. And I'll give you a short story. When Marty and I first met here in Winnipeg with the Federation, and we wanted to talk to them about some real concrete issues happening in Winnipeg. Linda Saussure coming into Winnipeg, Les Rothberg from If Not Now being invited to be a keynote speaker in our Shabbats, independent Jewish voices having pretty much freedom, to demonstrate around the city unabated. BDS having freedom to come and demonstrate just outside the Jewish Community Center during Folklorama, suggesting that we're baby killers. Nobody on the other side responds. We wanted to know what was going on. So we asked them because, in every federation is also a CISA representative, and he was in the room with us. And we said, where's your intelligence on the actors here in our city? How do you monitor what's going on? How do you monitor the safety and security of our community? Who do you know who's the key players here in this game, of anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, Jew hatred? They have nothing. They know nothing. They don't know who the key players are. They don't know what they're doing. They don't monitor them. They don't watch them. That's why a lot of times we're caught behind the 8 ball with our pants down as a community, because we don't monitor it well enough. It's people like yourself, it's people like me, it's people like Marty, who day and night diligently monitor these various organizations and various groups and individuals. And we're the ones who are setting the alarm. We are the canary in the coal mine of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred and anti-Israel hatred in Canada. It's not Bnei B'rith. It's not CIJA. It's not Simon Wiesenthal Center. They come after the fact. And even then, they choose very carefully which part and which event they're going to participate in to get maximum exposure. To me, that's not advocacy. To me, that's not standing for the state of Israel. To me, that's not standing for the Jewish people. You don't get to choose and pick what advocacy you don't do for the Jewish people. You don't get to choose when you stand and when you don't stand for the state of Israel. You don't get to choose when you're going to be a Zionist and when you're not going to be a Zionist. This isn't a part-time job. It's not a part-time gig. I know it's not for everybody, but if you're going to be serious about this and committed to this, then you got to recognize that you got to understand who the players are. Before we started today, Mayor, I sent you a video from Firaz al-Najim condemning HaAtzmaut. I wonder how many of our fellow leaders in our community, whether it be CIJA, Bnei B'rith, or any other, are doing what we do and monitoring those things and documenting those
Ron,
things.
hold on one moment. I think we have a call here.
Hello, someone there? Hello? No, never mind, Ron. It's okay.
No, that's okay. Yeah. And I think that's the question that we need to ask ourselves, as a community, is really, how much does our leadership, again, as we call it leadership, spend on ensuring our safety? We asked here in Winnipeg, when they raise money every year for the funding for the Federation, how much money is earmarked, targeted for community safety? How much is targeted and what is it being spent on? How much and what is spent on? Until today, we haven't received an answer. You can't find it in any documentation. That's a concern to us, because without those kind of tools available to us as a community, we're playing the game from behind. And then it takes people like yourself and me, Mayor, to be very, very vocal and to be out there to ensure that this is
okay. Well, this...
Hold on, Ron.
Yeah, no problem.
Can we help you?
Yeah, hi. Is this the Mayor Weinstein?
Yes. How can we help?
Yeah, I got a question. This is Alan from Maryland.
Hey, Alan, how you doing?
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah. Now I got a question. Is Isha Khan like Pakistani?
I read that she's from Pakistan.
Oh, okay. So she's a Canadian Pakistani?
I think so.
Yes.
Well, how did she get in charge of essentially a Holocaust museum?
Oh, it's a great question, and we're just trying to find out.
Because it started as a Holocaust museum in its inception, and in order for it to be fully accredited and to receive the kind of funding they needed to receive, and I'm going to say it out here, because I don't think too many people like that it was only going to be about the Holocaust. It needed to be shifted into a museum of human rights. Isha Khan, if you look at her background, she does have a background. She was the head of the Human Rights Commission here in Manitoba. She's a human rights lawyer. There are some credentials behind her name, that don't make her somebody who's not, let's say, qualified. And the issue we have and the concern we have is her long-term relationship with the leader of the campaign to get the Naqba into the museum, a personal relationship. Her, what appear to be promises, assurances, and guarantees to this person that they will move ahead with some type of a Naqba display at the museum.
Yep.
Her involvement, whether it was past, present, if it's still ongoing, with organizations that have direct connection to BDS elements, those things being big question marks to us as Israelis and as Jews about how she's coming into this conversation in relations to the Naqba. What prism is she coming from? What narrative is she coming from? And is she really the appropriate person to be the judge and jury on this?
Yeah, look, whatever her background is, anyone who comes to Canada should embrace what is considered to be Canadian values. And
yeah,
it's a Canadian value to support Israel. It's a Canadian value to basically agree that the IRA definition of anti-Semitism makes sense, and the consensus in the Jewish community.
If nothing else, it's important, for anybody at the museum to remember why the museum was originally built, Mary, right? And it was built on the basis of the Holocaust. You got to look through that prism. Whenever you're going to judge any kind of an exhibit coming into that museum, you got to look at it from that place. Where did it start from? Who started? What was the reason behind it? And when it's coming to issues, that are so crucial, like the Naqba, you got to be extra judicious and extra careful with what 100%. You're doing. And we're alarmed that I don't see that there, Mayor, to be honest with you. I don't see that, because I don't believe her for 1 second that she's been in communication with a single Canadian organization. I don't believe it for 1 second.
Yeah. Now, Ron, let's zero in on a little bit. When we talk about the proponents of the Naqba idea versus the Holocaust. Okay, so we have a video to show right now. A very short video from memory that was from a day ago of one of the leaders of Hamas talking about the Holocaust. Let's show that video. This is very powerful. It shows the mindset of that so-called peace lovers. Let's just, we'll show this video. This is really shocking. Here we go.
لماذا لا تسأل هذه الأنظمة العربية أصحاب الصهيونية العربية الجديدة بعد الصهيونية المسيحية واليهودية، لماذا كانت المحرقة؟ هل لأن الذين حرقوهم كانوا مجرمين، أم أن هؤلاء الناس اللي هم اليهود في هذه البلاد سيطروا على اقتصادها وعلى سياستها وسخروا كل إمكانيات هذه الشعوب لصالحهم؟ والدليل على ذلك اسألوا التاريخ، كم هي الدول التي طردت اليهود منها؟ كم من الدول، ما من دولة في أوروبا إلا وطردت اليهود منها لأسباب تتعلق أنهم كانوا يفسدون في هذه البلاد، يسيطرون على أموالها، يسخرون اقتصادها لمصالحهم، ثم إذا دخلوا في حروب تعاونوا مع أعدائهم عليهم، وبالتالي كرهتهم الشعوب فطردتهم، وبالتالي لم تكن المحرقة حالة شاذة، لأنه ما من دولة في أوروبا إلا وطردت اليهود وقتلت منهم. والدليل على ذلك ما حدث في الفترة التي سبقت الحرب العالمية الثانية.
Okay, so there you go. That's the BDS. Hamas is a major component of the BDS. That would be front and center of a Naqba exhibit in this museum. That's what these Palestinian Canadian groups support, unless they want to go public. If there is a Palestinian Canadian group or leader that wants to go public and condemn that, well, we just saw that video, condemn Hamas.
That ain't gonna happen.
I mean, what kind of an abomination is that? Justification of the Holocaust.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's justifying
the Holocaust, a Jewish conspiracy, and everything else. You know, when you watch, where's Richard Gere?
I was just about to just jump on that.
Where is he?
You're right. You're right. But he'll just say it's 1 out of a million people.
Yeah, well, this is one of the main leaders of Hamas.
Exactly. That's the
it.
mentality.
So where's
of
the
entire
condemnation
group.
of this? And he sets the tone
Mhm.
for Gaza and the supporters of Hamas.
Right.
He sets the tone. Where's the condemnation from these human rights BDS groups? There is none.
What
Because
he
it's
says,
all anti-Semitism.
of course.
Yes.
You know,
come on in.
Mary,
Go ahead.
Mary, it's no different. It's no different than you know the Mufti of Jerusalem, who's just been exposed
Absolutely.
for his visits in the concentration camps and the words that they used prior to the establishment of the state of Israel.
Okay.
There you go, perfect. I mean, if you look,
Ron, describe the picture. Go ahead.
I mean, it's horrific. I mean, the picture on the top right left is one of the pictures of them, visiting a concentration camp. You see the Mufti there within Treblinka concentration camp. You see the Mufti shaking hands with a variety of different high-ranking Nazi leaders, including meeting with Hitler. Including you look at the bottom left there again, a nice casual walk through the concentration camp where they actually had the Jews, Hungarian Jews, they had them line up for them in a display as they walked by. Then he sent himself, the Mufti, sent two of his people to go back and look and study how to build these concentration camps to see how they can import them back into the Middle East, to Northern Africa, to Palestine, in order to do their own final solution. So
fast forward now to the video that we just saw, and the justification from the Hamas leader for the Holocaust and the anti-Semitism. Has anything changed?
But it's not just him, though. It's every other member of Hamas and the PA, everything else. Even Mahmoud Abbas has said some pretty nasty things over the years.
That's right.
I remember saying, if I'm still around, not one filthy Jew foot will set foot.
Something like that he said.
That's the same mentality.
In what he'd want to see as some type of Palestine state. No Jew.
No Jew. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
And they teach this to their children and to their grandchildren, and they put it in their school books, and they entrench it in them from generation to generation, and then they come out and they cry, poor me, claiming victimhood through hatred, claiming victimhood through pure evil. It's so diabolical. Only somebody who's a little bit not completely can do something like that. Can take something so evil and then turn it into, look at me, I'm a victim. Look at what the Jews did to me. Look at what the Jews are doing to me. And then you have Richard Gere saying, Israelis won't have a home until Palestinians have a home. Those people need a home. What home does he need? A home so he can burn me? A home so he can annihilate my family and my people? That's the people I need to give a home to? These are the people I need to share bread with? Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
There's no question. This is a phone-in, so whoever wants to call, who has a question or a concern, call the number on the screen, 647-510-5535. Call. We'll take your call. And also, whoever is joining us, who is ever watching, please share this on your social media platforms that you're part of. We'll reach a lot more people. We're reaching lots of people. Every show gets approximately 1,500 views, close to 2,000 views. We want to spread that. We want that to grow tenfold.
Of course.
And we're getting experts involved with us to that know a lot with social media, how to spread it.
We had a few people earlier. So folks,
here today,
it takes a lot of work and obviously a lot of money to keep this sort of thing going. Please donate if you can. Doctor, if you can maybe put our donate website on, so people, if they want to donate, they could, please. It takes a lot of effort, obviously, to do this. But again, back to what that video was about. It's the same mentality.
Yeah.
And these Richard Geres and these other high elitists, they've never met people like this. They think they can sit down and have a kumbaya meeting with everybody and convince them, like, we can all get along and stuff. You know what? Some people just don't want to play nice. That's the bottom line. It's sickening that they only want to hear one narrative. Also, it's something else. It really is something else.
But it's been the narrative. It's been the narrative that's been, shouting the loudest. It's like a dog that barks. If the dog that barks the loudest is the one that's heard. Same way people believe. Outside of our Jewish community, people believe that Independent Jewish Voices has this, overarching, amount of Jews who somehow are in their camp or follow them. When in reality, when you look at them, and we've talked about it before, Mayor, they barely register, on any blip on anywhere of the percentage of people that they represent from within our community. But because they shout loud, and because they do propaganda very well, and because our own leadership lacks in those abilities, or is afraid to do it, or doesn't think it's their responsibility to do it, they're opening up a vacuum and a space for these people to come in and be legitimized. And that's why every story you see will have CJA and then Independent Jewish Voices, as if they're equals. Federation, Independent Jewish Voices. So they put them on an equal footing, and for the person outside our community, what they see is these people must be of equal weight. So, there must really be an issue within the Jewish community about the IHRA. Look at it, CJA, Independent Jewish Voices. There must be really an issue in the Jewish community with the Naqba. Look, it's B'nai B'rith, and it's Independent Jewish Voices. And we're not doing enough as a community to teach, educate those outside of community that those people, that element, Independent Jewish Voices, does not represent an iota of what the real Jewish community represents. And only people like yourself, Mayor, and people like what me and Marty are trying to do with the J.ca, we're recognizing that if we don't do this, there's no other voice out there who's going to do this. And if we're not going to be able to do this and get people rallied around us to start understanding that this is what needs to happen if we want to see change is not going to happen. I told you before, Mayor, that, they're testing the grounds all the time. Whether it was Canadian Defenders for Human Rights 2-3 years ago when they showed up out of nowhere, and let's walk into Jewish communities, let's see how the police react. Let's rent a big U-Haul and put all kinds of Jew hate stuff on it, and let's see what they'll do. Let's go into the Walk for Israel and agitate them. And every time that our community didn't do anything, writing letters and condemnation does nothing. Every time we didn't, it empowered them to do more and more and more and more. Then you see them wanting to get the Naqba into the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. You see them all of a sudden having, I don't know if you noticed on City TV, morning show on City TV, when they were showing the boycott Palestine. I don't know if you saw that show when they were talking about buying Palestinian dates for Ramadan and buy them from Boycott Palestine. If you look at the Boycott Palestine website, you'll see that it's a sister website of the BDS. Yes. And this has now become normalized. It's on TV with their slogan on there, and everybody who looks at it from the outside goes, "Hey, legitimate." It's been legitimized. It's a Trojan horse. How you get in there? If you can't get in there through the government, you're going to come in through the back door, and you're going to groom people, and you're going to get them used to it, and then it's going to be a bit too late. That's why we decided on this Naqba issue. Enough was enough. This is where we make our stand, and we say no more. And from here going forward, we're going to fight you in the same way that you fight us. You want guerrilla? We'll do guerrilla. You want propaganda? We'll do propaganda. Not a problem. But we're not going to be silent anymore. It doesn't work. It does not work.
There's even a former CEO of the Canadian Jewish Congress, Bernie Farber. I don't know what made him change, but on his social media, on Facebook, there's something that's being put out to challenge the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. There's been a couple of things coming from people who hate Israel, who are the authors of it. One is called the Jerusalem Declaration. You read it, they justify the BDS. And they call this the right alternative. One of the authors of it, Richard Falk, who was disgraced with the UN. I mean,
hey, you like the criminal?
Anti-Semitic, and to put on for Bernie Farber to put on his page, this seems pretty positive. That's just wrong. We need better unity in our community, and we have to step up to the plate and call out everyone and say what's going on. And when the Hamas leader justifies the Holocaust and Hamas is an integral part of the BDS. You can't have one without the other.
No.
To provide any kind of legitimization of that movement is actually helping to legitimize their anti-Semitism.
Absolutely.
And there's just no question about it. And we need greater, like I said, unity in the community and momentum. But we're not waiting. We're not waiting, and we're going strong, and we're encouraging more and more people from the community and outside the community to get involved in our campaign and see to it that this Naqba exhibit is not going to be, we're going to expose them. We've started, we're on this 24 hours a day. There's no question about it. And we have a good network of people working with us. We need people to step up to the plate, support us, get involved, make a phone call, send an email. It's easy. It's a piece of cake. Do it.
Yeah,
you have a lot of time in your hand with the corona going on. Some people are just home. Send an email. Right. Call your friends. Send emails.
Do something.
Get on the phone. Share our show. Call the show. Get involved.
Exactly. Not everybody has to be on the front lines. People, need to use their skills where best their skills can be used at. Some people are good at the front, some people are good at the back. The point is you got to do something, like you said, and if you think what you're doing is small and meaningless, if enough people do small things, they become a huge thing. So don't think it's small and meaningless. And if you don't know what to do, ask. Well, there's a million things that you can do today, tomorrow, right now, like an impact and effect. Monitor Facebook, monitor social media, notice what's going on in your community. Start looking at who the agitators and the major players are. Start to learn and understand what's happening in Canada and who the major players are in Canada. Education is the best tool we have to defend ourselves. And the more we educate ourselves, the better we're going to be.
We're going to invite leaders of various Jewish organizations who claim to be fighting anti-Semitism to come on the show. And if they refuse and want to ignore the issue, we're going to call them out by name. That goes for large organizations and smaller organizations. We're not giving anyone a pass. This is a major issue. To equate the Naqba with the Holocaust is as low as you could go. And we have to call it out. And we have to get people involved in any capacity. And certainly sending emails is easy. We need more people to do that. We need people to encourage that. We need people to make phone calls. We need you to be part of the program. If we're going to have protests or whatever we're going to have, we need you to be part of it. Call us, send us an email, say you're ready, you want to help. That's it. That's all we want to hear from you. You want to help. And that's it.
We can definitely help with the tools, like Mayor said, call. The phone number's there. You can email us, let's have a small discussion. Let us know what you're good at. We can guide you. We need a lot of help, folks. We're a minority, a very, very tiny minority. For some reason, how many names have we been called that on the streets? I don't know how many times we've been called Nazi, Nazi. By these Antifa people and everything else. We've been called Nazis. There you go. And it's becoming the norm. And the so-called Jewish organizations, they just turn a blind eye to it, and the BDS Jewish organizations, they got no problem with it, then we have to call out the most.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's time, folks. It's time. Get off the couch, start helping. Let's go. It's enough.
Absolutely.
We can't do this ourselves. I think Gary wanted to talk about some Titanic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes, Gary has got something.
Doctor?
Our doctor in the studio, he's got something to say.
A quick little synopsis. Today is the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, and it's important for us to remember that there were a lot of Jews on board. A lot of people don't really realize that. So first and foremost, let me just go back to the year 1912. And what was interesting is we know we've been blamed for everything. We've been blamed present day for 9/11. We've been blamed for global warming. Back on this date in 1912, the Tsar of Russia blamed us for the Titanic disaster.
Of course.
George Frederick Ernest Albert, George IV, little people know, not many people know that they were actually cousins. Well, he defended us on that day. He said to the Tsar, "I beg your pardon, but that was an iceberg." And the Tsar said, "Iceberg, Goldberg, Greenberg, it's all the same thing." But moving onward now to a more serious note is on this date in 1912 was a Titanic disaster. So I'm going to talk just for about 5 minutes about Titanic and the Jews. And since we don't have much time left, I'm going to talk kind of quickly. So if you can't hear me, you can slow me down in the replay. So the Titanic and the Jews, I'll start it off with Benjamin Guggenheim, who was given a seat on a lifeboat and given a life preserver, and he refused to take it until all the men and women were off the boat. And a survivor, Rose Amélie Icart, a French woman, wrote the following: the millionaire Benjamin Guggenheim, having helped the rescue of women and children, got dressed, put on a rose in his buttonhole, and he just basically prepared himself to die. So the year is 1912, and the pogroms were raging all across Russia. And at the same time, Sholem Aleichem just finished Tevi the Dairyman, which later gave rise to Fiddler on the Roof, which is now celebrating its 50th anniversary. Also in that same year, Moshe Shagel, who became Marc Chagall, painted the famous Fiddler painting. So while these pogroms were raging, Tsar Nicholas I had decreed that Jewish children would be taken from their homes and prepared for 25 years of military service, starting at the age of 8. So many Jews were struggling to escape between 1890 and 1920, and an estimated 2.7 million Jews managed to flee Russia, many of them with false documents, trying to get to England so they could get on the Titanic so they could end up in New York. Those huddled masses yearning to breathe free were inspired by the words of Jewish poet Emma Lazarus, which is inscribed on the Statue of Liberty. If they could manage to board the Titanic, New York City would be their destination. The Titanic had a kosher kitchen, not many people realize that, where Chef Charles Cannell had separate cooking utensils and dairy for meat and for dairy, not only in the kitchen, but plates and dishes. This is actually a plate from the shipping company that owned the Titanic. He perished with the Titanic. There were well over 200 Jews on board the Titanic that we were aware of. Many had changed their names and documents, so we couldn't tell how many more Jews there might have been. They were leaving Russia. No one knows for sure how many were there, but we know that only 27 Jewish members of the Titanic managed to survive. And then there's Isidor and Ida Strauss. Both were immigrants from what had been the German state of Rhineland. They met shortly after the Civil War, where he was an officer in the Confederate Army. They were married in 1871, and they had 7 children. After the war, Isidor's father, Lazarus, convinced Macy's to allow him to sell some pots and pans in the basement of Macy's department store. 1 year later, 18% of the total profit of Macy's was due to this guy selling cookery in the basement. A little bit while later, Isidor and his brother Nathan, they just bought Macy's, and Abraham and Strauss. And Isidor was elected to Congress in 1984. So they took a winter getaway to the south of France. They were heading through England on the Titanic when it struck the iceberg. They were both provided with seat belts, with life preservers, and with seats on a lifeboat. The reason being they were in first class and they were getting priority. So as his wife was getting into the boat, he said that he's not going to go. He's not going to leave while there's still women and children. So while she was given a seat, she got out of the boat, went back onto the Titanic, and said, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go, and we have lived, so we will die together." And they both perished on Titanic, and they gave their seats up to people, to younger women and children. Survivors of the Titanic started stating that the couple was seen on the Titanic holding hands, kissing, hugging, which was unheard of for people of advanced age or anybody back in 1912. On May 12th, more than 6,000 people attended the memorial at Carnegie Hall. This included the mayor as well as Carnegie himself, and Supreme Court Justice Greenbaum were there as well. His brother was so devastated by the loss that he retired and devoted the rest of his life to philanthropy. He operated centers for food distribution, for coal for the poor, built homeless shelters, and most importantly, he's known for setting up milk stations all around the country because so many children were dying from bacteria and from funguses they were getting from milk. He saved almost 500,000 children. So today, Isidor and Ida Strauss are remembered, memorialized in many places, including a school in New York, the Strauss Hall at Harvard University, and a park in New York was dedicated to them. Cantor Rosenblatt was regarded as the greatest cantor of his time. He actually recorded a song, I'm going to see if I could find it, And the album raised $150,000, all of which went to the victims of the Titanic. Well, it seems the song will have to wait, so we'll continue on in the interest of time. The Titanic and the Jews is a story that not many people are aware of. And when we talk about Macy's, I'm not sure if you heard about the girl, the blonde who went she went to the YMCA because she was dyslexic and she thought it said Macy's. So ending on a happier note, we Jews have been helping mankind above and beyond our numbers all throughout eternity, and we can't forget the wise words said, though, that if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? As opposed to many of the progressive Jews who feel that we need to sacrifice ourselves for everyone else, that we're not supposed to. We're supposed to watch out for ourselves also, not watch out for everybody else instead of us. And with that as my closing comment, Mayor from South Texas here, back to you in Canada.
Well, you know what? We have we're coming down to the wire, but I believe we have a song to put on that's appropriate for Yom HaZikaron and HaAtzmaut. And it's a wonderful song. The doctor in the studio have it. It's hope we can play it.
Gary's ready with the flags, so
Ron's ready with the
I
flags.
mean, Ron.
That's very nice.
Do it.
And if anybody wants to call still, we could take your call, but we're going to be nice.
Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Salam. Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Yavo Shalom Aleinu, ve'al
kulam. Song.
Great song.
We want, we want peace. The other side does not want peace. They want pieces of us, and we will fight. We will fight back. We have a call. We have a caller on the line. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, actually.
Oh, ma'am. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Hi, this is Ellen Lehman.
Yes.
My name with radio. But anyway, I just want to say, wow, what a great show, and I just appreciate all your efforts. And I have been emailing. I just emailed this one woman, that's why I had asked you for her email again. So
Thank you.
Trying to get friends to rally, and obviously, the crazy American progressive, Jews in my country right now that are just lunatics. But I have a nice group of friends that are conservatives, and we're trying to, be as just reinforce peace with Israel and just normalcy for everyone.
Right.
But I also wanted to see if with your emails or rather your information on Facebook,
Yes.
if you can also just leave some resources for people that you feel that are important for us to email and contact
Right.
and call, that would be great.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank you.
Thanks very much for calling.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Take care,
you.
Ellen.
Bye-bye.
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 That's nice. That's nice.
We all
Very,
help
very
you.
nice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
Like I was saying, wonderful song about peace that we want. And from day one, since the establishment of Israel, the hand of peace from us has been stretched out. It has not been reciprocated. There is a little bit of thawing going on that we do have. Israel has these peace agreements with
Other countries.
United Arab Emirates and Bahrain.
Morocco.
Yeah, and it's a warm peace, and things are really developing. They have adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. This is wonderful. The BDS for this year, they made it a campaign to try to work to cancel normalization. That's what they call it, against normalization with Israel. How anti-Semitic, how horrible, how low can people go? But they do go low. So the hand is outstretched for peace to those that want peace. But again, a fascist, I remember when I went to yeshiva in Israel, this one guy there, he said something very interesting. He said, a fascist stretches out their hand in that kind of salute. It's like they're reaching for everything. They want everything. The Jews and the JDL, so there's like a clenched fist. We just want to hold on to what's ours.
Right.
And we'll fight for it. And we don't want what belongs to anybody else. Just our own one little Jewish homeland.
A sliver.
The small little tiny Jewish state.
No.
And we want to mind our own business and get on with our lives and make Israel wonderful. The Jewish state is wonderful and prosperous and exciting and spiritual
And safe for all Jews.
and everything else and everything good, and contribute as much as we can to humanity, which Israel does. People do also with all the Nobel Prizes that are won
Of course.
in many fields. Israel is on top of the world, leading the world in terms of the battle against coronavirus. It's unbelievable what they do, and in technology and you name it. Israel is going to be a powerhouse very soon with natural gas, in fact.
Gas, medicine.
And with the latest that happened with the Suez Canal, that there was a blockage there of some huge ship. They're talking about alternatives now, the Gulf states, that some kind of a passageway from Eilat to Ashdod, some kind of a pipeline that they're talking about developing to transport oil from these Arab countries that want to have peace with Israel. It's unbelievable what's going on. Israel is the future. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
And the BDS and all their hate. And believe me, we are outnumbered. The Jewish people is outnumbered. Israel is outnumbered.
We always have been, though.
outgunned, but we're winners. And we'll win this battle too. We'll win this battle no matter what happens with the museum, with all their hate and anti-Semitism that's going on with us. In the annals of history, how it will be recorded, who stood for anti-Semitism, who stood against the Jews and Israel, and who did not, who were our friends and who were not our friends. In the annals and the books of history, it will be recorded.
Absolutely.
100%. And you have to stand, you have to look yourself in the mirror and take a stand for truth and faith in God and proper values. And that's just the way it is. We finished Passover. Every single year we have Passover, we recount the story. And it's important to recount the story because it's not old. It's relevant to today. And we have to take the same stand today as was taken back then. And we move forward, and the vision is for Israel. It's we are determined, and we're not backing down, and we don't care what kind of flowery letter of nonsense Isha Khan will send to me or others who are sending her emails, we're going to be relentless because we're standing up for the truth, and this is the truth. And it's an abomination to pour ice water on the memory of the Holocaust and to mean it in such a way. Ron, we're ending soon.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Go ahead.
And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the show, and I'm reading some of the feedback that some of the people or comments are making. It just gives me the drive, and the passion, and to continue doing what we're doing because we're doing the right thing. My kids asked me as we were watching the Yom HaAtzmaut celebrations, and before that the Yom HaZikaron, they asked me, why us? Why is this on us? Why do we have to take this burden on us? And I said to my children, no, it's not a burden, it's a privilege. I'm privileged to be a Jew. I'm privileged to be an Israeli. I'm privileged to be able to stand up for my people. I'm privileged to have the history that we have. I'm privileged to be part of a minority of people who are good, decent human beings who've brought so much to this world, have brought so much goodness to everybody. I look every day and I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of Israel. I'm proud to be associated with people like yourself who stand up for Israel, to stand up for what's right, to stand up for our Jewish people. That's what we got to do. We got to keep on spreading the word. We can't stop. We can't slow down. This is a prolonged war, and it's a war that we're going to win if we continue to stay united. I'll finish off with this. Today, there was one of the people that lit the torches. Every year at the Yom HaAtzmaut, they light 12 beacons or torches. I don't know how you want to call them, each representing, for one of the Jewish tribes. But each year, each one who lights them has a specific story that they tell as they light the torch. And there were, to this year, like every year, there was a gamut of people. It was amazing. But there was this one man, he was a Yemenite, a 102-year-old Yemenite, who stood there and was lighting the torch. And what touched me from what he said was, today we're not religious Jews, we're not secular Jews, we're not anything else. We're just simply the Jewish people. And it resonated with me. On Yom HaAtzmaut, and on Yom HaZikaron is those times when we can put those things away, and look at each other, hopefully, and recognize the miracle that is Israel, the miracle it is to be a Jewish person living in today after the, events of the Holocaust. And it's just amazing to me. So I'm privileged. I'm privileged, and I'm proud to be Jewish. I'm proud to be Israeli. And just, the pride is oozing out of me on days like today. So thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being with us, Ron. Thank you. Mayor, just like it's written.
Yep.
Bless those that bless Israel, and damn those that damn Israel. Bottom line. And you're right. This side is the winner side because we do want peace and stuff. You know what makes them? Makes them the losers. And they absolutely will be. They've tried for centuries and centuries.
Yep.
And here we are all over again, and we're just going to keep fighting until we win.
Hitler said his rule, it's going to be 1,000-year Reich, Nazi Reich. No, where is he?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Where's everybody else?
But we are
Right?
around. We're
Absolutely.
around. The Jewish
Romans,
people are
the
around.
things, the that.
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. So, thank God we're privileged to live in this generation.
Yep.
And we're seeing miracles right in front of our eyes. And, every single day we should thank God for the blessing of being alive in this era. It's a significant era. It's a messianic era.
Yep.
Everything that happens with Israel is just like it says it would be when the Jews return to Israel, and it's happening.
It will.
In front of, and it's happening more and more, and so vividly. So, not to speak the truth is like a sin.
It is a sin
today, in the context of where we are, and we're speaking the truth, and we will continue to speak the truth.
It's an amazing time with them.
And when we look at the BDS, again, it's anti-Semitism. We take it seriously, and we're ready for the fight. We're never backing down. And all their arguments, all their slogans, everything they say, it's like dandruff. You just brush it off, and that's what it is. And that's and that's the kind of contempt you have to have for their vicious anti-Semitism today. After the Holocaust, they can't just say the Jews have a right. They don't say that. They
they're trying to take everything away.
They get off on this type
minimizing
of
everything.
hate. And
That's right.
we don't give an inch. We stand up to Al Quds Day. We stand up when they try to gang up on Jewish students on campus and try and shut down events for Israel. We stand up to that, and we try to send a message to Jewish communities globally. Never back down.
Absolutely.
Never ever back down, and absolutely no fear.
Don't
ever
fear.
show any fear.
Exactly.
Never. And if you need some help to get to that point because you're a little confused or you do have some fear, call us. We'll help you.
Absolutely.
We'll help you. There's no question about it. We'll show you the way. And that's one of the purpose of the show, to show you the way, the right way. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, Robert Spencer will be back with us next week. There's something beyond control today, and but we wish him all the best.
Absolutely, Robert.
And great health.
Great.
And he'll be back with us. So thank you very much. And
I'm going to put this message in the kotel right here.
Put it in the
There it is.
kotel. There you go. Amen. Thank you very much. Shalom, shalom.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Shalom.